Coming up on our newscast, North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles, including an apparent ICBM. President Yoon convened an emergency NSC meeting and issued a strong condemnation. Nuri will be launched on June 15th. Unlike last time, South Korea's first homegrown space rocket will be carrying a performance verification satellite and 4 separate cube satellites. A shooting incident at an elementary school in Texas takes at least 20 lives. An 18-year-old gunman was reportedly shot dead at the scene by police. Hello, it's good to have you with us. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with our top story. North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles, including what appeared to be an ICBM, into the East Sea. This is the 17th provocation by the North so far this year, and it's been roundly condemned. Seoul and Washington responded by firing missiles in a show of force. Bae-eun-ji starts us off.
At 6 a.m., North Korea fired what appears to have been an ICBM. Then, at 6:37 a.m., the regime fired another. And then there was a third launch, likely a short-range missile, fired 5 minutes later at 6:42 a.m. All 3 missiles were fired from the Sunan area in the North capital city of Pyongyang. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the suspected ICBM flew 360 kilometers at an altitude of up to 540 kilometers. The missile appears to have been the North's Hwasong-17 ICBM, and it flew at almost 9 times the speed of sound.
By launching an ICBM, North Korea has again broken its own promise that it made to the international community. It is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions and a serious provocation.
As for the second missile, it was launched but was soon unable to be detected. South Korea's military said further research is needed to see whether it has failed. The last, which appears to have been the North's KN-23 missile, flew 760 kilometers at an altitude of 60 kilometers. The missile was launched a day after Biden left Japan, where he wrapped up his trip to Asia. And it came just 4 days after his summit with President Yoon right here in Seoul. In response, South Korea and the U.S. jointly fired surface-to-surface missiles toward the East Sea to deter further threats. This involved one of South Korea's Hyunmoo-2 missiles and one U.S. ATACMS, or Army Tactical Missile System. The South Korean military said this clearly shows that Seoul has the willingness to respond sternly to any kind of provocations from the North, as well as its capability to hit targets precisely. Because the North had recently been showing signs of a ballistic missile test, a day before the launch, the South Korean military staged a military exercise that involved taxiing warplanes. This kind of drill is also known as an elephant walk. 30 of South Korea's F-15K fighter jets taxied in formation on Tuesday along an airfield to check their readiness. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
And President Yoon Suk-yeol convened an emergency NSC meeting and condemned the regime over its provocation. He ordered the implementation of Seoul, Washington extended deterrence as agreed with his American counterpart. Yoon Jung-min tells us more.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, who took office a little over 2 weeks ago, convened his first emergency meeting of the National Security Council Wednesday morning, shortly after North Korea's missile launch. Yoon strongly condemned the launch as a great provocation, especially as it came before U.S. President Biden had touched down on U.S. soil following a trip to Asia in which the two leaders agreed to new measures to deter the nuclear-armed state.
North Korea's consecutive launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles and short-range ballistic missiles today are illegal acts that directly violate the UN Security Council resolutions and are a grave provocation that threatens peace in the Korean Peninsula and the international community. The government strongly condemns it.
President Yoon ordered his officials to take practical measures for extended deterrence and strengthen the South Korea-U.S. combined defense posture as agreed with his U.S. counterpart. Yoon's Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-hyo explained that deploying U.S. strategic assets, which typically include long-range bomber aircraft, nuclear-powered submarines, or aircraft carriers, can be considered as part of extended deterrence, although no such deployment is planned for now. The timing of the North launches is not an accident, and Seoul's top office views the provocation as Pyongyang sending a strategic message to both Seoul and Washington, coming just days after the allies agreed to bolster their defenses and together take on the threat of North Korea. This was their first test, and they have responded quickly, condemning the launches while joint firing missiles of their own. Wednesday's missile launches mark another escalation by North Korea, which over the last 6 months has become increasingly aggressive. But the concern is over what comes next. A top office official says Pyongyang has already tested a nuclear detonation device, leading Seoul to believe its 7th nuclear test could happen in the next several days. Now that would be its first nuclear test in 5 years and a major step up. Yoon, Arirang News.
The top diplomats of Seoul and Washington strongly condemned North Korea's latest missile launches. The officials pointed out the tests were a serious provocation and agreed to push for more sanctions on the regime. Min Soo-kyun shares with us what was discussed.
South Korean Foreign Minister Park Jin and his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken have strongly condemned North Korea's latest missile launches. Speaking on the phone on Wednesday, the top diplomats called North's move a grave provocation that threatens peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and in the international community. They warned such military activities would only further isolate the regime and prompt Seoul and Washington to strengthen their joint defense posture. Park and Blinken agreed to push forward with a new UN Security Council resolution to impose additional sanctions on Pyongyang. During a press briefing, Foreign Minister Park Jin called on Pyongyang to immediately cease its destabilizing actions and to return to dialogue. He also vowed to take practical measures to respond to the North's military aggressions.
The Foreign Ministry will maintain close coordination with relevant countries and lead the international community's strong and decisive response to the latest ICBM launch. Above all, under close cooperation, it's important to maintain a strong South Korea-US combined defense posture and draw up a joint response plan.
On the same day, South Korea's top nuclear envoy Kim Gun had back-to-back phone calls with his U.S. and Japanese counterparts to discuss the North's continued provocations. He also spoke with the Chinese and Russian ambassadors to South Korea to stress the need for a strong, unified response. Meanwhile, the international community was also quick to respond to North Korea's missile tests. Japanese Defense Minister Nobuo Kishi called the acts absolutely impermissible and criticized the North for pressing ahead with its nuclear missile programs while its people suffer from the COVID-19 outbreak.
North Korea continues to put its effort into nuclear and missile development while ignoring the people suffering amid the spread of the coronavirus. It violates the UN Security Council resolution, and we strongly condemn it. We have protested to North Korea through diplomatic routes.
The Chinese government, however, urged parties to maintain restraint and seek political solutions. It hoped for parties to swiftly engage in meaningful dialogue and to explore ways to work through each other's concerns. Min Soo-kyun, Arirang News.
North Korea's missile test came just a day after President Biden left Asia. Other than being somewhat expected, there are standout factors about the launch. The regime could be planning more provocations. Kim Bo-kyung provides a deeper analysis.
North Korea's firing of 3 missiles came just 1 day after Joe Biden wrapped up his first Asia trip as the President of the United States and before he had even landed back on U.S. soil. It was the 17th show of force for this year and the second since President Yoon Suk-yeol took office on May 10th. One expert says that such a show of force by the North is its way of showing that it has the upper hand in the region.
After the new administration kicked off, North Korea would have been mulling over what its stance should be towards issues surrounding the Korean peninsula. Through these provocations, it's trying to strengthen its voice.
Although the provocations were predicted, the intensity of them has gone up, with a mixture of both long and short-range ballistic missiles being launched. One expert says that in doing so, Pyongyang is targeting both South Korea and the United States after the two agreed to expand joint exercises and bolster their extended deterrence.
Almost all elements that might have prompted North Korea to take action were included in the summit. especially the resumption of large-scale joint military exercises and the deployment of U.S. strategic assets. These are what North Korea has been fiercely opposing.
And with President Yoon Suk-yeol unwilling to bend over backwards to appease North Korea, experts say more intensified provocations, including a nuclear test and additional ICBM missile launches, are highly likely.
Pyongyang has clearly showed its provocation levels can go up by launching different types of missiles, including the Hwasong-17 ICBM. It is highly possible that it'll launch more missiles or carry out a nuclear test in an unpredictable way.
김보경, 아리랑 뉴스.
On June 15, South Korea will carry out the second launch of its first space rocket developed using domestic technology. Unlike the first try back in October, the payload will be real satellites. Han Sung-woo provides a glimpse of what to expect.
The date is set. On June 15th, South Korea's first fully homegrown space rocket, Nuri, will lift off for the second time. 8 months after its initial launch came short of putting a dummy satellite into orbit. This time, though, it'll be attached with actual satellites, a 180-kilogram performance verification satellite and 4 mini cube satellites that weigh about 1 kilogram each.
But in second launch, now we have to verify that this launch vehicle can carry satellite which act like the normal satellite, and this satellite will verify the launch vehicle. The second launch vehicle, Nuri, is capable of delivering satellites into the space.
Nuri will soar into the sky from the Naro Space Center in the southern coastal village of Gohung, Jeollanam-do Province in the afternoon, likely sometime between 3 and 5 p.m. The Science Ministry and Korea Aerospace Research Institute have reserved June 16th to the 23rd as the rocket's launch window in consideration of variables like bad weather. Currently being assembled and readied for launch, the 3-stage rocket weighs 200 tons and measures 47.2 meters in length.
Launch vehicle is all parts and all assemblies, all manufacturings happened inside Korea. So it's a fully Koreanized launch vehicle.
Engineers have reportedly upgraded its 3rd stage, which burned out earlier than expected in October, despite Nuri reaching its target altitude of 700 kilometers. According to officials, a comprehensive interagency drill was conducted last week to prepare for a wide range of emergency situations, including fuel leakages and unapproved drone disruptions. South Korea has invested more than $1.5 billion into the Nuri project since 2010. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The government will provide full support for private sector growth as well as R&D for SMEs linked to the 4th Industrial Revolution. That's coming from President Yoon at a convention held at his office in Yongsan.
새 정부는 자유민주주의와 시장경제 체제를 기반으로 새로운 도약을 이루어 나갈 것입니다. 민간이 창의와 혁신을 바탕으로 경제의 성장을 주도해 나갈 수 있도록 적극 뒷받침하겠습니다.
He pledged full compensation for businesses hit by the pandemic as soon as the extra budget proposal gets parliamentary approval. Some 520 people attended the event, including leaders of Samsung, SK, Hyundai, LG, and Lotte. The focal point, coexistence between conglomerates and SMEs. Earlier in the afternoon, Yoon hosted the same 20 representatives of the people who were on the podium for the presidential inauguration ceremony. He presented them with commemorative watches and had lunch with the participants. As part of efforts to transition to renewable energy sources, a global hydrogen association led by South Korea was launched, joined by private sector associations from 18 countries, including the U.S. It's designed to help further develop the global hydrogen economy. Ji-young reports.
It's the launch of the first global alliance for the hydrogen industry to be led by South Korea. H2 Korea, a local hydrogen industry group, on Wednesday announced the establishment of the consultative body, the Global Hydrogen Industrial Association Alliance, also called GHIAA.
As the hydrogen economy progresses, there is a growing need for a joint and comprehensive channel to deliver the voice of people in hydrogen sector at the various international forums. I strongly suggest that the GHIAA acts as a bridge between intergovernmental organizations and private hydrogen-related enterprises.
The new alliance is made up of 18 private sector hydrogen associations representing major countries, including those in Europe, the US, and China. The alliance led by South Korea plans to create global standards for the hydrogen industry and help with the overseas expansion of hydrogen firms. It'll also hold regular meetings to boost cooperation and stimulate private investment in the industry. During the inaugural ceremony, member countries share their views on the hydrogen industry as a whole, as well as related government policies. The U.S. representative said that by the year 2050, the United States is going to see 14% of its energy demand coming from hydrogen across a variety of applications, and the country is also planning tax benefits.
We're currently in the middle of a number of conversations for a tremendous clean energy tax package in the United States that would not just include hydrogen, but a range of clean energy actions.
According to data by Chicago-based management consultancy firm McKinsey, 18% of the total energy demand by 2050 could be met by hydrogen production. The market for hydrogen and related technology is expected to bring in revenues of more than $2.5 trillion per year, with more than 30 million jobs created globally. During the event, the South Korean government also emphasized the role of hydrogen as being a game changer in achieving carbon neutrality by 2050.
In order for establishing hydrogen economy based on green hydrogen, the government will develop all parts of the ecosystem from its production to distribution and utilization.
He added that most of all, international cooperation is what will be key to expanding the hydrogen economy. 엄지영, Arirang News.
Another tragic shooting over in the U.S. An 18-year-old high schooler opened fire at a Texas elementary school on Tuesday, local time, killing at least 19 children and 2 adults. Choi Min-jung has the full story.
Another mass shooting in the U.S. has left at least 20 people dead. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, 19 children and 2 adults, including 1 teacher, were killed on Tuesday during a deadly shooting at an elementary school in the city of Uvalde, Texas. The gunman has been identified as an 18-year-old high school student, Salvador Ramos. He reportedly acted alone and was shot dead at the scene by police. Before opening fire from classroom to classroom, Ramos is believed to have shot his grandmother with assault weapons he purchased on his birthday. According to a state official, Ramos had taken to social media beforehand, hinting at a potential attack by saying that the kids should watch out. 3 days before Tuesday's massacre, a photo of 2 rifles appeared on an Instagram account believed to be linked to Ramos. Following the tragic shooting, U.S. President Joe Biden addressed the nation, calling for action.
It's time to turn this pain into action. For every parent, for every citizen in this country, we have to make it clear to every elected official in this country, it's time to act.
Biden also said that these kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. He added that America must have the courage to stand up to the gun manufacturing industry that's been aggressively marketing assault weapons for the past 2 decades. The Texas shooting is regarded as the deadliest elementary school shooting in the U.S. since the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre a decade ago, which killed 20 children and 6 adults. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Pope Francis expressed his condolences over the Texas shooting, saying he was heartbroken by what happened. The pontiff sent his prayers to the victims and families and called for stronger commitment to end what he called an indiscriminate trafficking of weapons to ensure such tragedies never happen again. Global leaders, including those from France, Germany, New Zealand, and Ukraine, also sent their condolences and call for action. Moscow's invasion, which has now lasted more than 90 days, is in its most active phase. That's coming from Ukraine's defense ministry, which pointed out the war could hinge on the situation in the Eastern Front. Multiple media outlets cite the governor of the Donetsk region as saying that Russian forces have taken control of 2 districts there. In Mariupol, which has fallen to Russia after a 3-month siege, at least 22,000 residents have died. The Guardian reports that around 200 bodies have been found in a basement. Despite the immense pressure Ukraine is under, it reports that 82% of respondents in a poll of 2,000 Ukrainian adults said they do not want the government to give up territory for the sake of a peace deal. Come June, South Koreans head to the polls to vote in local elections and several parliamentary by-elections. The competition is heating up in the greater Seoul area with a tight race for Gyeonggi-do provincial governor. Lee Kyung-eun has the details.
Following its victory in presidential election, the ruling People Power Party says it needs another victory in the local elections to better serve the public by strengthening cooperation between the central government and regional governments.
Help us work with President Yoon's government by overcoming the obstacles put in place by the opposition party and its domination of parliament.
The main opposition Democratic Party, following its loss of the presidency and as its approval rating slide in the wake of a sexual assault scandal, called for one more chance to serve the public.
If you give our party another chance in the local elections, I will make sure our party brings about a renewal.
In most polls, the PPP is ahead of the DP in terms of approval ratings, which experts attribute to rising approval ratings for President Yoon. But the election outcome remains uncertain in key swing regions. Competing for governor of Gyeonggi-do province are the PPP's Kim Eun-hye, who is President Yoon's former spokesperson, and the DP's Kim Dong-yeon, who emerged his campaign with Yoon's main rival, Lee Jae-myung of the DP. This race for the country's most populous province is shaping up to be as tight as the presidential election, which saw the slimmest margin in history. Lee Jae-myung himself, who was runner-up in the presidential race, is trying to redeem himself through a parliamentary by-election in Incheon's Gyeonggi district. But this race, which was once a sure win for him, is now in doubt, with the PPP's Yoon Hyung-sun catching up.
I've lived here for 25 years serving the community as a doctor. This is my biggest strength as a candidate.
I once represented the whole country as a presidential candidate. I may lack roots in the region, but I have a great deal of experience.
Unfortunately, the candidates won't be able to gauge public sentiment starting Thursday, when polls can no longer be published ahead of 2 days of early voting on Friday and Saturday. Young-eun, Arirang News.
Local authorities caution against consuming fish and shellfish this summer as a bacteria called Vibrio vulnificus has been found in seawater on the west coast. The bacterium can lead to rapid sepsis. According to the Jeollabuk-do Research Institute of Public Health and Environment, it was found a week earlier than last year. Experts point out rising seawater temperatures are increasing the risk of infection. Last year, 51 people were infected and 22 died. People who develop symptoms such as fever, chills, vomiting, or diarrhea are advised to go to the hospital immediately. With travel restrictions eased dramatically, Seoul is expecting to see more visitors. The city government is holding special events. These include an exhibition of the works of Tim Burton, now on at the Dongdaemun Design Plaza. Also on at the same venue, an event on the future of architecture using metaverse and VR. Both events run through September. The Namsan Hanok Village is hosting free concerts of Korean classical music throughout next month. Visitors can also try making traditional handicrafts and snacks. For more info, visit the websites of the Dongdaemun Design Plaza and Namsan Hanok Village.
We have showers in the forecast for tomorrow. This round of rainfall will be falling for a short period of time, but it will be enough to ease off the intense heat. Northern Gyeonggi-do and eastern Gangwon-do provinces will see 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall. The rest of central regions and parts of the south will only see around 5 millimeters. After the rain tapers off, daytime highs will get much lower tomorrow. Readings will return to the seasonal norms for most regions. For the capital area, temperatures will stay near the average until this Friday. Although readings are getting lower, wide temperature gaps will continue, so please take extra care of your health. We'll see a mix of clouds and rain for the morning hours. Lows in Seoul will start off at 14 degrees Celsius. Daytime highs will be 2 to 5 degrees lower than today. Seoul will get up to 24 degrees, Busan 25, and Daejeon and Gwangju will be reaching 26 degrees. Summer-like conditions will make a return this weekend, and on Sunday, light showers are in the forecast for Jeju Island. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.